Hey everyone, and welcome back. And to those of you who just caught the talk that I just had with Amy Wallace, I hope that coaching is a little bit clearer. And I would definitely be interested to hear from you on Slack if you're thinking of taking up coaching or wanting to hear more. We can definitely have those questions answered. Amy has joined us on the Slack channel too. So today is Friday. It is the 5th day of our Zero to Revenue challenge, and in the past 5 days we have gone from having an idea to building the product briefing room, which we are going to launch later this evening, in fact probably within the next hour. But before we get to that excitement, I wanted to take a chance to talk you through the project that I've been spending a lot of my time on this week, and it's essentially the next step for what will happen for Briefing Room beyond the Zero to Revenue challenge. So I have been spending a lot of time looking at Product Hunt as a community and really analysing, is this a good space for us to kind of take the next step and share Briefing Room with more people. Now, because the aim with Briefing Room is to create a space for early stage founders to update their early stage investors and to really understand the analytics of the engagement that those investors have, we thought it's a really good example of a space to find those early stage founders. So in my analysis of Product Hunt, it definitely overlaps with our initial target customer segment. And I think that's an important place to start. If you're thinking, well, how do I get my product out there, whether it's B2B or B2C, have you had a look at who your target persona is? And have you found out, well, are they the kind of people who are using the likes of Product Hunt or BetaList or AppZoom or whatever it might be? So the first thing to say about considering launching on Product Hunt is definitely set aside time to do your research, because just as an example, when you have a Google of how to launch on Product Hunt, there are reams and reams and reams of actually some really high quality, good blog posts written about it, about other people's experiences. The thing with that though is that there's conflicting information, there's conflicting ideas, and it's all kind of dependent on the size of team that product or company or maker has, or maybe the type of product that they have and who their customer segment is. So I think the biggest thing is set aside that time so you can really get dug into those blog posts, do your research and understand which bits you want to take and which bits you might want to pass by because they're not relevant to you. So that's what I spent a lot of the early stage of this week doing, was just getting to grips with the first analysing who our customer persona are through our customer research interviews, and then finding out, are these the kind of people who are on Product Hunt? And once I decided that yes, this was going to be a good opportunity for us, I wanted to step into the space of, okay, well, how do you go about it? Is there a step-by-step guide? A lot of people claim to have them, and how much information could I glean from that? So I'm going to show you a space where I just started putting lots of the research that I found. And we've been using Milanote throughout this week. It's the tool that I've used here. And I just found it helpful because with that huge long list of lots of different resources, sometimes it was hard to think, which blog did I find that in? I thought that was maybe useful. I want to follow up on that later. Or maybe there were action points or further research that I wanted to do about something. So I started picking apart what I thought were the key and actionable parts of lots of these different resources and just populating them in a Milanote. So for me, that's kind of how I go about sorting out my thoughts and making plans and starting at a kind of high, messy level of a project plan. And I want to talk you through some of these. These are the key takeaways from a lot of those resources. And something that comes out again and again is, how do you go about going on Product Hunt? So you can launch and list your own software, your own product on Product Hunt. But it can be really beneficial to get someone who's already active on Product Hunt, has a lot of subscribers, and often posts and lists other products to actually back and support your product, because you're going to get more eyes on your product that way. And there's some really good examples of how to go about doing that. The thing with all of this is, in order to be successful, and how do you define your success, but for the kind of exposure that we want for Product Hunt, you can't just put it up there tomorrow, hope some people see it, and that you're going to get the return on investment on the time that you've spent preparing. I think you need to make sure that you've set aside the time to build and make and create the community who are going to help you really get the exposure you want for your product. So the first place to start, I was having a look at, well, how do you go about finding who these hunters are, the people who can post your product? And this is a great example, and I love that somebody else has done this and then just shared it. There is a really handy Twitter list that has something like the top, he says 470 of the top hunters on Product Hunt. And I read one article of someone who had spent a year, and I can really appreciate if you're kind of a maker who's building and releasing things often, then maybe you can spend a time kind of growing that community. But they spent a year following these Product Hunt active users and engaging with their content, seeing the kind of things that they often posted about, the kind of products that they really liked. And that really gives you the chance to choose an active Product Hunt user who maybe fits your brand and your product and your business and the type of thing that you're going to be releasing. So that was a huge, I like that someone else has already done the work, and there's a list there and you can go through and just start that engagement. Again, you're going to need time to be able to do that. With Product Hunt, it sounds like a lot of it is asking people for things. So as much that you can do before asking to actually help others is going to make the reciprocal process much easier. So good advice from some of these articles has been find out and target how you can help some of the most active users of Product Hunt. So what project are you working on at the moment? How can I help? I would love to review your latest product that's in beta. Can I have early access? I'd love to give you feedback. Often people will share blog articles that they've written and they've drafted, and they might offer to give you medium access to give them feedback before they publish it. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can go about engaging with people and offering your help and your time before you then want to go ahead and ask them, hey, so I've got this product that I'm going to be launching and I would love your support. So there is a lot of information about how you should kind of format your post and how the actual nitty-gritty details of how Product Hunt itself works. And something that I noticed when reading over these articles was just keep an eye on any information that talks about how Product Hunt works or how the algorithm works or how you get upvoted or what the rules are, because they changed over time and you want to make sure that you're reading an article that is most up to date. So while some of these blogs and articles are going to be really useful even if somebody went through the process a good few years ago, anything that mentions specifically how Product Hunt works and how the algorithm works, or how to get into the email to be promoted in as the top 5 products on Product Hunt in any given day, you want to just make sure that you're looking at what Product Hunt themselves are saying about that. So that's just a wee word of warning that I recognise from doing a bit of research. There is a lot of debate around what's the best day to launch Product Hunt. So initially, one of our earliest conversations when we were having discussions with Ben and we were having our daily stand-ups, we were talking about, I'm doing Product Hunt research, and he's like, just want to make sure you're not saying you're going to launch on Product Hunt tomorrow, are you? And that's the thing, like what day and what time do you need to lead up to it are things that you're going to want to debate. And so for us, we could have chosen to launch on Product Hunt today, the day that we launched the project, right? But we've gone through this whole process. We've had 2 live teardown sessions during the week. We've got feedback that we want to action from that. So that's the product side that we still need to kind of reinforce and make sure we've got time to shore that up. But then there's also the community build aspect. So a big part of this week has been sharing with our Slack community, sharing the resources that we've used, the tools that we've used, and hopefully engaging and being transparent and getting to know each other as a community. And that's really important for a Product Hunt launch. We've kind of done that within our community, but something that we would want to have time to do. So the reason that we're not launching today or over the weekend or first early next week is because we need time to reach out to those active Product Hunt users and tell them the story about how Briefing Room came to be in this 1 week Zero to Revenue challenge. And that kind of leads me to talking about the launch story. So you have a great opportunity with your launch story, which is essentially like your foundation myth. Why this product? Why you? why did you as a maker decide to build this? And it's a really nice introduction to your product. And also people tend to vote for things and to engage with things and to take a second look at it if you do have an interesting story. And we're really lucky that we've chosen to build a product within 1 week and have that really short, the time constraint, a really short amount of time. And it does mean that we should have a really good story to tell. But we're still going to need next week, and we've spoken about this over the course of the last few days. We're going to need the next week to kind of reflect on the experiences that we've had. We've been iterating on copy all during the week. So at the beginning of the week, we were talking about and describing email updates. And over the course of the week, we recognized that Briefing Room actually has power far beyond keeping your investors updated. It gives founders the power to actually understand through analytics what the impact of those updates are having, how engaged their investors, their shareholders, or their potentially future investors, how engaged they are. And I think that's really powerful, but we're still going on a journey with that. So giving ourselves a chance and space to be able to create that foundation story, write up blogs about the week, about the product development, is really going to help us stand out from other people who are going to launch on the similar sort of day to us. So that's another thing to consider. What kind of story do you have? Why did you choose at this time to build this product? Why should other people use it? And that can be a really good way of getting your brand across and getting your people's eyes on your product, and hopefully for them to choose to upvote you, which is what you ultimately want for that increased exposure. What else did I find out? So there's a lot of different, I had to think about goals. So there's lots of different people over different periods with different products talking about how to try and benchmark. Are you likely to get in the top 5 that day and get into the email and be in so many people's inboxes? And that's the goal, is to get your product in front of all those people, all those subscribers. So I was trying to benchmark, well, how many visits could we expect? How many, if we were thinking of goals of how many people we would have sign up to trials, or how many upvotes would we need? You can see an example here. There's lots of different people kind of giving their numbers of what they were able to achieve. And it's good when you look into those numbers to dig a little deeper. So I didn't come across any in my research who said, we launched this and we thought about launching it 5 days ago, and then we launched it and we had 600 votes. Everyone with a good number of votes, so these guys here, you can see 600 plus, had an already existing community, an early adopter community who were passionate about supporting that brand and promoting them. Some of them had been doing the kind of external building and engagement for up to a year. So I said that one of the stories I read was all about spending that time on Twitter, reaching out and helping other people. And they'd been doing that for months and months before they then asked other people to upvote them. So I think just thinking about your goals, you want to make sure that you know what it takes to reach that kind of exposure. So that's why I'm giving us more time after this week to really prepare for Product Hunt before we then launch Briefing Room on Product Hunt. There's some really handy examples out there, and I'm going to do exactly the same with everything that we've built throughout this week. We've been sharing the resources so that you don't have to start from scratch if you're going to do something similar. So you'll be able to see the tools that we use, the copy that we use, and other people have done the same when looking at their Product Hunt outreach. So there are examples of emails that you can send hunters and ask for advice. There are examples of messages that people have sent to their communities or their friends to get support for the day and to ask for reviews. And I think up here, there are some specific people, so I tagged some of them when I found them, and there's some specific people who have gone through the Product Hunt experience of launching a product themselves, and they offer, if you've got something new on Product Hunt, send it to me, I'm really happy to look at it. So there are definitely people who carve out portions of their weeks to spend time on that. So I think don't be afraid to ask, as long as you're asking in a non-pushy way. So this was what I did with all my research that I'd done earlier in the week, which started with the kind of scary Google search here that launched all of these different articles. And I found the access to the people who are most active on Product Hunt. So this is really useful for that external community build, so the outreach of who you might want to ask to take a look at your product. So over the next week, all of my planning and project planning is related to reaching out to people with either questions or commenting on recent blog posts or sharing some of the great content that we've been able to share this week from product makers, from founders, from investors, and from ecosystem experts. So just trying to engage them around the kind of topics and discussions that we've had over the course of this last week, and see who else we can get on board to be supporters. I wanted to show you the actual platform itself before I dig into our plans. So you can see Product Hunt here and the ability to upvote. And you can also see this is a really important part of the ask. When you're asking people to take a look, you really want to be able to have people commenting on what the pros are of your product and what the cons are. And that's something that we've already gathered through our user testing, and that's something that we want to also build over the course of next week. So can we have more people testing the product, more people giving us feedback, and asking them to share that when it comes to our launch on Product Hunt. Something that is really good to be aware of is just have a look into what's the actual user experience for people who are not already signed up to Product Hunt. So maybe this would depend very much on your customer segment, but if you know that actually your customer segment, your community are already avid Product Hunt users, then that's great. They're going to be really comfortable with the platform itself, with how it works, with how to engage and how to vote and how to leave a review. But if your customer segment, you're trying to bring that community with you who are really supportive of you, but if they're not Product Hunt users, then you might want to think about what support can you give them to sign up, to create an account, to actually manage and work the platform. So whether that's a quick run through on a video or it's some screenshots, it's just something that is important to flag up depending on who that customer segment is. Then I want to walk you through, I've used Trello for this one. I might move it over to Milanote in time, but I just had a template I was already working with, so I kind of wanted to talk you through this. So scrolling all the way back to the beginning, something that I've mentioned a good few times, but it's a task that I have for next week, is before we launch on Product Hunt, I want to know exactly and have decided who our customer personas are. And that's a really useful place for me to start, because I want to be able to know in our copy exactly who we're describing the problem to and who we're selling the solution to. So I want to make sure that I've got that kind of language market fit of making sure that when we are writing copy, it's really ringing true with the right group of people. And that's going to help us convert a higher rate. So it's something that we've done during the week with research, but I want to really get into the nitty-gritty of that next week. And it's one of the tasks that I've outlined, is just to really clearly identify those different personas, what their perceived barriers would be to use Briefing Room, and what we would be trying to solve for them. So once I've done that as a starting point, we're going to look at the full funnel of how would they go about going from hearing about that we've launched on Product Hunt. They might hear about it on Twitter, they might hear about it through any of our zero to revenue content, so it could be YouTube, they might have read about it on a blog. Where would they then go? What would that experience be like for them? And essentially, what does that funnel look like? So are they going to have different landing pages? What are the tools that we're going to use to answer their questions, to tag them as a Product Hunt user so that we can give them really specific follow-up drip email campaigns? How will we do the drip campaigns? What kind of tool will we use there? So this is just an exercise that I've designed for next week, is to really work through all that, to decide what tools to use, and I've outlined examples of what I think that will look like for us, and really just to make sure that we know what potential sticking points might be on that funnel. So one of them we've already talked about. So if someone's never used Product Hunt before, that could be a barrier. Or for us, if they get all the way through and then they see that there's a cost involved, how does a free trial work? That could potentially be a drop-off point. So just thinking about that full funnel is going to help us to try and smooth out any questions people might have. And that could be improving the copy, it could be improving the flow. It might just be having a kind of customer support option so that we can actually live answer questions for people when they're landing on our website. So it's just a thought process there to go through what will that experience be like. I then kind of got into a space that I want to be able, I've called it dashboard, but a space that I want to be able to throw everything that we could possibly need during our Product Hunt launch so that I know where to find it. It's something that we've done this week actually. You'll have noticed if you're on the Slack channel in general, you can find all the links you might need, all the basic touchpoint information is all pinned in general. And it's a similar sort of idea that I've used here. So if we're trying to answer a lot of people's questions through a lot of different channels, if we're doing a lot of outreach, we just want to be able to have access to the right links in the right places, the right copy that we can copy and paste, really quick access to the launch story once we put that up as a blog. Really simple, like getting the link right to the Product Hunt page where we'll be featured. So that's a space that I've made so that we can find that, and especially when you're working collaboratively, I find this really, really useful. Just making sure that there's a single point of truth for everything that we might need. Then next up, I've kind of thought about not just the process of preparing before we launch on Product Hunt, what we'll actually do on the day itself, and then the follow-up as well. I think it's something that we've kind of learned through this week is that you plan the Zero to Revenue Challenge, you do the live stream, you build the product, but then so much of what we've done this week has been, okay, great, so next week I'm going to be doing this, 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 and this. So it's thinking about actually the whole reason that we're doing it and we're generating the buzz is to then keep that momentum going. So just to make sure that within my project plan, I was thinking about, well, what's the follow-up? What's the aftercare after Product Hunt? How do I circle back to people who dropped off? Or how do I circle back to people who maybe upvoted Briefing Room but maybe didn't sign up for a trial? So just trying to make sure that I've closed all those potential loops, or at least I've thought about what kind of copy might I need, what kind of email campaigns might we need to make sure that we're trying to stop as many of those gaps as possible. So I've started picking apart different actions that we need to take before, immediately before, on the day, and then afterwards. Something that is mentioned to be like absolutely key, especially on the day itself, is to get the timings correct. So you kind of have to be, this is why I've written literally hour by hour, sometimes multiple times an hour, what we'll be doing, where we'll be doing it, what we'll be sharing, who's going to be leading on it. And that's just to make sure that when there's multiple things going on, when we're juggling a lot, that it's really simple to organize the task management flow and to see when something has been done, when it hasn't, and if you need to circle back and catch something. So I'm going to run through a couple of examples with you just in the few minutes that I have left before 6 o'clock when we turn to our next segment. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing over the course of next week is taking all of the rich content that we've had this week, so from all the speakers that we've had, the different discussions, and we're going to be uploading that onto Hey Summit, so a platform where we can see all of the videos, all of the bios for the speakers, the details of their talks, all in one place. Now, you might think, what's that got to do with launching on Product Hunt? But the reason that that's part of the Product Hunt campaign is we were talking about doing that outreach to people who are active product hunters, to try and get people engaged with the idea of your origin story, your foundation story, and to get people interested and excited in anticipation of the big day, your launch day. And I think having something like content, other people will do it through giveaways. So there's definitely a benefit to having some kind of buzz that you can have along with your launch. You can see good examples of that if you go into Product Hunt and see what kind of people are running online events around their launch, or maybe they're running physical events and meetups around their launch. There's a lot of different examples of how they've kind of engaged different sets of the community to then be able to support them on that launch. So for us, a really good part of that is, well, we've already got a lot of content from this week, and it'll be trying to maximize that in the weeks ahead, ready for launching on Product Hunt. So that's one example of the tasks that we'll be doing. We've got decisions here at Trello. I just love because I'm such a visual organizer. So I've got them all separated with colors and tags and labels. I've used different emojis to separate when something is needing a decision, when something is needing an action, just so that I can see at a glance what's needed and what the next steps are. Something that I picked up was to have frequently asked questions already prepared. So that's something that anything that we can prepare before the day itself is going to save us time. So dry runs of user testing actually has helped us, because the kind of questions that people ask means that we're prompted to then prepare those answers. So during the week we've talked about Landbots or responding and automating emails, anything that we can do where a customer or a potential customer might have a question, and if we already know what kind of questions those are likely to be, we can hopefully put out the right information so that people can really easily and simply discover an answer. And something that came up again and again in the blogs that I was reading was to make sure that you've cleared the deck and you know that you're going to be absolutely 100% available to people asking questions on the day that you launch. So you can definitely see here that there's a lot to get done. Hopefully I've kind of talked through the process of why we've decided we're going to take some time, we're going to create all that kind of the collateral, all of the information, do all the community outreach ahead of our Product Hunt launch. So just now it is a few minutes to 6 and we're about to move on to the next segment, but it is the 22nd of March and we have just finished our 5 days of taking a product from idea to revenue in 1 week. That product is Briefing Room.